See if this works today. Ha! All right. Go back. Well, it's not going to go back. Okay. So, over the last week, first of all, does anyone still need this information? No? Okay. So, over the last 2 weeks, because there was an intervening week where I was feeling sick, you took the spiritual gift inventory. I'm going to go through it just one more time, just in case you had any questions, to make sure we're just all on the same page. Now it doesn't want to work. Why don't you just push it, Cole? Huh? Maybe it's a computer thing. That's good? Okay, thanks. Yeah, so this is what the spiritual gift inventory looks like. It's on page 10 of the handout I gave you. Next to every question, you need to answer with a number between 0 and 3. 0 is least like you, 3 is most like you. On the next page, Cole, can you hit it again? On the next page, page 11, you need to write down the score you had for each question and then add them to a total score. This is my chart. Go to the next one. Then lower on that page, you need to write in the total score and shade in the boxes so that it would, go back one, sorry. So that it would look something like this. That's my chart. It's a visual representation of the scores that you had. Okay? Is everyone on point? Anyone have any questions? Now's the time to answer them. Okay. So you should have a list of your top 2 to 3 spiritual gifts, okay? So we're going to walk through each gift. Now there, in the Bible, there's a list of quite a few gifts. This is just a set of them. Next week, we'll talk about all the gifts that we haven't talked about this week, okay? So let's go to administration. There you go. Administration. This gift is named in 1 Corinthians 12:28. I'm going to read that one for you this time, but have your Bible ready because we're going to be reading where we see each of these gifts in the Bible, okay? So 1 Corinthians 12, verse 28, it says, "And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, helping, administrating," that's where this one shows up, administration, administrating, and various kinds of tongues. So, gift of administration. People with this gift see needs, gives attention to details, and delegates. Now, there is a lot of different types of people with this gift. Often when we think of an administration, we immediately just think of like pieces of paper, checking off, little facts and being, very kind of task-oriented. But you'll see in the characteristics section of your handout that, again, we see that the person gives attention to details. But in the characteristics section, people with this gift can also take it another way. And we see the big picture and maybe not the details needed to get there. Okay? So there's different ways that this gift will kind of pop up. Maybe you'll see all the things that need to happen to make the building, or sometimes you might just see kind of the broad outline of the building with this gift. So again, know that there's wiggle room in each of these giftings as we have them, but there may be a different way in having this than someone else. The administrator is great at implementing visions, coordinating ministries, working towards goals. So if this is one of your strengths, pay attention to possible places for ministry in the body and also pitfalls to avoid. I like that this has pitfalls that we can almost misuse our gifts in. Let's go to the next one, prophecy. This gift is named in 1 Corinthians 12, verse 10. Can I have a volunteer to read that? 1 Corinthians 12, verse 10. Brad, go ahead.
1 Corinthians 12, verse 10. To another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the ability to distinguish between spirits, to another various kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just seeing where this is mentioned. There's also other places. We just looked at 12:28. That was mentioned again there. It was mentioned again in Ephesians 4, 11 to 16. Jesus gives the prophets to the church. So people with this gift are more direct. Okay, they're to the point in the conversation. They kind of aim for the heart of a problem, and they don't really beat around the bush. Okay. Many people believe that prophecy is telling the future. And this belief mainly comes from the Old Testament prophets whose sayings are fulfilled at a later date. Just realize that the Old Testament prophets demonstrate both components of the gift of prophecy. There's two components to the gift of prophecy. There is future telling and there is truth telling. Okay? The bulk of people with this gift of prophecy are usually in the truth-telling category. That doesn't mean that future-telling isn't happening, but they're usually in the truth-telling category, meaning that they speak direct truth, okay? And sometimes, again, by the power of God, speak of the future. One thing that you'll notice if you ever go through the Old Testament prophets and read through them is that most of the time their concern is speaking truth to kings and rulers. Okay, they're telling them what's going on, how they need to correct their action, and what will happen if they don't. Okay, sometimes people like Isaiah don't even understand that they're telling a future prophecy. So there's this time where Isaiah comes to the king and he says, you just have to ask the Lord for a sign and he's going to give it to you. Whatever you ask, he's going to give it. And the king refuses, and Isaiah says, fine, you're just going to get one from God. And here's what it is. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. Okay? Now, in that moment, I don't know that he really understood that he was telling that something was going to happen, or that Christ was going to happen. He was talking to the king at that time. But God, through his power and understanding, was also saying, by the way, I'm going to drop a seed here that's going to come to fruition later. So, just know, people with the gift of prophecy, we are not always going to know how God is going to use it. But it's going to be mainly towards, I think, speaking truth. And again, for purposes of this assessment and this class, we're mainly concerned with the truth-telling part. We really have no assessment or way of being like, okay, tell us the future. Okay, we don't know how to actually look at that, okay? So, the prophet is great at preaching, evangelism, working with groups of unchurched. If this is one of your strengths, one thing that you can always do is pray for growth in humility and gentleness, and pay to the potential pitfalls to avoid. Because again, people with the gift of prophecy, because they go right to the heart of the problem, they sometimes lack tact. So pray for gentleness, pray for wisdom in how to say what you're going to say. But again, it's an important gift to have. Next, we'll go to teaching. Teaching, this gift is named in 1 Corinthians 12:28. We read this one earlier as an appointed position in the church as well. Ephesians 4:11-16 also talks about teachers. The teacher desires to speak in ways that nurture growth in the life of the believer. Okay? So sometimes, this happens often in churches because there's a need that we teach when, for like Sunday school, things like that, when there's a need for a teacher or in Awana. People with the gift of teaching, this gives them kind of life as you do this. You enjoy it. This pours into you even as you're doing it. If you find yourself in like Sunday school or Awana, and you are teaching, but you kind of feel drained afterwards on a consistent basis, this might be an indication that maybe your gift isn't teaching. Okay, but if you have that in your assessment, this is what teaching is. The teacher is enthusiastic in sharing the knowledge and truths they learn and will always look for better ways to communicate. They can get too focused sometimes on teaching the truths of the word and forget the importance of application. So just be aware of that. Sometimes, I even have to watch that in my sermons, that I'm like, okay, I really want to tell you this point, but how do you apply this is just as important. So if this is one of your strengths, pay attention to the places that you could plug into and possible pitfalls to avoid. Let's go to the next one. Encourager. This gift is described in Romans 15, verses 1 to 2. Okay, so go to Romans 15, verses 1 to 2. And can I get a volunteer to read that one? Obadiah, you got it? Nice and loud so everyone can hear you.
We who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Each of us should please our neighbors for their good to build them up.
So yes, encouragers build up other people, okay? They're sensitive to other people's problems and dilemmas. They provide or try to provide real answers, and are confrontational sometimes, but not offensive, okay? If you have the gift of prophecy and the gift of encourager, there might be times where you're a bit more offensive, okay? Because, again, tact. But there's a range in characteristics of encouragers. They can be both sensitive and very just, empathetic, or they could be very analytical and logical. One of my strengths is encouraging, and I'm more on the analytical and logical side, okay? It's where you kind of just look at the facts of what's going on, and it almost, for me, it balances out to an equation. This plus this equals that. Encouraging. But they can be a great counselor. They can be a great nursing home or homebound visitor. They could be a great discipler, or even just looking for outreach opportunities, things like that, okay? So again, always tell you this, if this is one of your strengths, pay attention to the pitfalls to avoid. Let's go on to serving. Serving. This gift is in Romans 12, verse 7. Can I get a... Did we do that one already? 12, verse 7. No, let's read that one. Can I get a volunteer? Chloe? Real loud. Thank you. Yep. So the server desires to be helpful in very specific, concrete ways. They're loving, they're caring, they're warm, can be loving, caring, warm. The server is burdened with other people's needs and will quickly move to solve the issue. It's very difficult for the person with the gift of serving to say no. Usually it's yes, because they want to help, right? The immediate goal is their objective. They like working with their hands and are often in the shadows, okay? So they're the type of person to just immediately jump if we need to pick up tables and chairs or get something done. Person with this gift will just jump right to it, okay? Again, immediate needs, working with hands, things like that. Let's go on to the next one, gift of mercy. This gift is described in Romans 12, verse 8. Chloe just read that for us. The mercy shower, the person who has the gift of mercy, bears other people's burdens. They can sense in other people emotional pain and suffering, and they're ready to help the weak in spirit and those with physical needs. People with the gift of mercy, they do great with visiting people in the hospital or visiting people in the nursing home or doing homebound visits. They have compassion on others, and they wish to just kind of bear hug and love everyone into the kingdom. Okay? Do you know people who like have the gift of evangelism or prophecy, and they go and they're like, "You're a sinner. You need Jesus. Let's go." Right? Do you know people like that? That's one gifting. People with gifts of mercy aren't like that. They'd rather just like throw their arms around them and be like, "Okay, let's go," and bring them all the way to church. Okay? So two different gifts. Those with this gifting can even often conflict with those with the gift of prophecy. So here's another thing to understand. People with different giftings, we can often even sometimes rub against each other. Paul, when he talks in 1 Corinthians 12, when he says this, if the ear should say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? So sometimes we can think of our gift and be like, "Oh, you don't need this gift of mercy. You need these gifts of encouraging and service, and so I'm not needed." Paul's saying, no, that's not true. And then he goes to here. "The eye cannot say to the hand, 'I have no need of you,' nor again the head to the feet, 'I have no need of you.' On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable." Okay, so sometimes he's not writing this in a vacuum. This is probably happening in the Corinthian church where they're like, "I have the gift of prophecy. I don't need these people with the gift of mercy." Or, "I have the gift of mercy. We don't need these people with the gift of prophecy." Because again, sometimes we can conflict with each other. Okay? So just notice that and just realize that separate giftings does not mean that one gifting is better than the other. God has gifted us with each of these giftings to build up the body. So if this is one of your strengths, again, pay attention to the possible areas of ministry and the pitfalls to avoid. Next is giving. Giving, this is described in Romans 12, verse 8, and again, we had just read this one. The giver, a person who has the gift of even generosity, this is the person who meets financial needs of fellow Christians and members of the body. There is a willingness to share just personal and material possessions. Now, the giver is alert to the needs that other people may have overlooked. They have a strong sense of even missions. Okay, they are usually well organized, usually self-disciplined. They're generous, almost to a fault. In my personal experience, I've seen those with the gift of giving also very generous in their time. This can be paired with kind of the gift of serving. If something needs to be done, they'll not only help financially, but they'll also be the one to pick up the shovel or a paintbrush to help with it. Especially I've seen in regards to missions. Okay, so the gift of giving or of generosity, it's generous to a fault. Let's go to slide 13. Okay, so now that we've covered the basics of each gifts, if you are willing, I'm going to ask you just kind of read out your strengths, okay? And this is what we're going to do while we do this. This is going to be a time where we can kind of help each other. If I told my family that I had just a strength in the gift of mercy, can you go back to, I think it's like the fourth slide or so. It's where the big red chart is. Yeah, we'll go forward one. There you go. Okay. Look at mercy. Mercy is my lowest one. If I told my family, man, I think I just explode with mercy, they'd probably be like, "Jesse, I think you did it wrong." Okay? We each have giftings. We each have our strengths and weaknesses. That's okay. All right? I'm putting mine up for you all to see. Okay? We all have these so that God fits us together. My strength might help your weakness. Your weakness will help your strength will help my weakness, okay? So, we're going to go around and we're just going to, if you feel comfortable, you don't have to do it. I'm just going to ask for maybe your one or two strengths. And everyone else, I'm going to ask right after that, does that fit that person, okay? Does that, what you know about them, does that fit the person? Now, if you don't know the person, don't say anything. Because that wouldn't be as helpful either, okay? So, you all kind of get what we're doing? Cole, go ahead and go back to that one slide then. So this is basically a gut check, okay? Does this sound like me is what we're going to ask. And so I'll start with mine. Prophecy, encourager, teacher. Does that sound like me? Are you surprised that, by the way, that I'm not as strong in mercy, generosity, or serving? Does that surprise you? How about this? As a pastor, does that worry you? Hopefully not, because this is just kind of reality. Even if you would look, I like to make correlations to the disciples or to the apostles. If you look at Paul, he was definitely a prophet. He was definitely a teacher. His acts of mercy were probably a bit lower, okay? And that's okay. Katie, would you be willing to go next? Serving and mercy are your highest ones. I know. God brings opposites together, right? I mean, come on. Yeah, and I would say that's highly true. Dennis, would you be willing to go next?
Mine is the two highest, teaching and giving.
Teaching and giving. Does that sound like Dennis? That does. Gracia.
Okay, the one that really surprises me, but I get it every time, is administration. But when you were talking about it, I see now, I always thought like book stuff.
Yeah.
Not definitely that, but some of the things you said.
Like more big vision type stuff? Yeah.
Giving,
All right.
I have to give with him.
So administration, more of the big idea stuff, not more of the smaller stuff. And giving. Does that sound like Gracia? Yeah. All right. Joan, Henry, would you like to do it? Maybe not this time? All right. No worries. Jolene, how about you? Teaching, serving, and giving. Yeah. Does that sound like Jolene? Yeah, from what I know of you, yeah, for sure. Carolyn, would you like to go? Serving, mercy, and giving. A lot of people are nodding their heads. Yep. Gail? Serving and giving. Yeah? Okay. Brianna? Teaching and administration. Are you more of like a detailed administration or more of a big idea administration? Detail administration, yeah. Does that sound like Brianna? Jesse? Okay. Does that sound like Jesse? Yeah. Lynette, would you like to go? Okay. What kind of administration? Big idea or more detail? More of the detail. Okay. Does that sound like Lynette? Yeah, these are gut checks, so if it sounds like her, yeah, we're good. Kevin? Oh, yeah. I honestly would have guessed like prophecy or something like that because I don't know, you're bold at least. Oh, really? See, this is why I ask. All right. Harlan, are you behind there? Would you like to do it? No, Leanne? Serving, okay. Yep. Yep. Janice? Serving and giving. Yeah. Donna? Serving and mercy. Okay. Sound like Donna? Yeah. Harold? Would you like to do it? Oh, yeah? You want us to guess what you are? Giving, yeah. And teaching. Giving and teaching. We close? We'll say yes. How about you, Janice? Or, not Janice. Joanne, thank you. I saw Janice right there. Joanne, would you like to do it? Okay, yep. How about Jason? Oh, okay. Yep, no problem. Brad, would you like to do it?
Yeah, so mine by a landslide was serving, and then my second highest surprised me was prophecy.
Oh, yeah? You're not afraid to speak truth, right? There you go.
I got Abby's here. Hers
You should share all 6 of hers. No, I'm just playing.
all the way to the end was administration.
Okay, yep.
She had a 3-way tie for second of serving, mercy, and giving.
Okay, yeah. Nice.
Way more detailed administration.
Sure. Now, I don't know if you had a chance to take it yet. Serving. Okay, and can you remind me your name? I know I've heard it. I saw you. Huh? Jesse? Jack, thank you. All right. Doug. Mercy, serving, and giving. Yep, okay. Sound like Doug? Sounds like Doug. Donna. Okay, serving and administration. Yeah, more detail for administration? Yeah, I'd guess that. Sound like Donna? Mm-hmm. Alyssa. Serving and mercy. Sound like Alyssa? Mm-hmm. Gerald? Giving? Okay. Okay. All right. Nice. Merlin, would you like to? No? George, would you like to? No worries. How about you two? Serving and giving? Serving and administration? Okay. Obadiah, would you like to go? Serving. Miriam? Knowing you? Teaching, yes. Chloe? Don't know? All right. All right, so go to the next question. Yeah. Yeah. As a gift?
Yeah, I've heard, but I mean, of all of us here, did you hear it was strong when it was encouraging?
Yeah. Other than me? All right.
Mine wasn't weak, but it wasn't strong.
Sure. Yours had it, Jolene? Sure. Okay. So help me out for a second. If you had prophecy as one of your top three, could you raise your hand? Okay. If you had teaching as one of your top three. Okay. Administration as one of your top three. So Brianna, you have like the same three strings I have. Okay. Mercy, top three. I'm going to put my hand down. Serving, top three. And then giving, top three. So the bulk of who we have here, just to let you know, is mainly mercy, serving, and giving. Yeah, so this is a good thing, right? I mean, these are three very needed areas, okay? But as you look at those, the question, were there any that you didn't agree with? Gracia mentioned that she didn't at first agree with administration until kind of explained a bit more. But yeah, is there any that you didn't agree with? Don't think you're much of a teacher? You don't agree with administration? Now again, it's not just detail oriented. It could be like more big picture oriented. But serving wasn't right? No? Okay. Okay. Saw where it fit after you read the definitions. Yep. Go to the next question quick for me, Cole. So here's the big question. You use your gifts. Now I put to lead and serve in the church, but I'm also a firm believer that you don't need to use your giftings just in the church, okay? Your gifts of serving and mercy and whatever your gift is can be used in the community as well, okay? Because it's those giftings that draw people in. The first very huge outpouring of gifts happened in Acts 2 at what? What happened there? Pentecost. And the first thing they did at Pentecost is they started to speak in tongues, right? And people, if Katie was a Spanish speaker and I was just talking like this, she would have been able to understand what I was saying in her language, okay? Now multiply that to a bunch of different languages. That was what was happening in Acts 2. And the result of that were people drawn in to see what was happening here. Peter presents the gospel to them, and then 3,000 are added to their number that day, okay? So using your gifting isn't happening just in the church. Okay, it can be a way to bring people in from the community. It's to build up the church, not just growth in like rootedness, but also just growth in building, bringing people in. So, what are some ways that you can use your gifts to serve and lead? Working in the kitchen's huge, yep. Especially if you have service, mercy, yep. Yeah, for sure. Teaching. Awana, Sunday school, as we grow the small group ministry, there'll be ways to use that. I'm going to leave that question with you, okay? Start thinking through this. Because it's one thing to know what you can do, but the important thing is to actually do it, okay? If I knew that I could, I can't do this, but if I knew that I could take apart a car engine and put it back together, but I never did it, what is the use of that knowledge, right? So, once you know your gifting, start working on using it. Cole, would you go to the next one? Next time, here's 4 passages to read. These 4 passages are the 4 passages that talk about spiritual gifting, okay? So this is what we're going to dig into next time. 1 Corinthians, chapters 12 to chapter 14, all 3 chapters. Romans 12, verses 3 to 8. And in fact, I'd encourage you just to read all of chapter 12. Ephesians 4, 11 to 16. And 1 Peter 4, 8 to 11. Again, these 4 passages talk about spiritual gifting. Read them, be familiar with them. We're going to dig into them. We're going to cover all of the spiritual gifts that we haven't covered today. Okay? Things like, again, tongues, interpretation of tongues, discernment, wisdom, things like that. And one last thing I'll leave you with, too. God gifts us for the building up of the church. And so I've seen in my 3 churches I've been to, my gifting has been different. I've fulfilled different roles. I've done different things that have fit that church, okay? So you're gifted for here, which means that God has something for you to do in this area, whether it's here in this church or in George or Little Rock or Rock Rapids, wherever you find yourself. God has something for you to do, okay? So start praying about that. God, you've gifted me these things. How can I use them? Where do you want me to go? Okay? All right, that's all for tonight. Thank you all. Have a good night. Oh, and there's my contact info if you want to get a hold of me.